Good morning. This is a
Good
Lance
morning.
Roll podcast where conversations are worth hearing and seeing. You can watch each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And for more information about this show and past shows, future shows, you can look at my website, which is behindtheblainsworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, coming to you from a Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we share positive news and uplifting stories about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce David Cater, who is an entertainer, who is a performer, a whole bunch of other kinds of things, for being my guest today. And David, you can feel free to wave to all your friends and friends who are watching this.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Okay, and it's David, and I'm pronouncing it David Cater.
You're spot on, unusually. Most people pronounce it Carter. So,
Okay, yeah, I think I did the first time I saw it. I said, whoa, that's wrong. And so, David, the first question I always ask when I have a guest on is in terms of, as a kid, you grew up where?
Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay, as a kid growing up in Greenville, South Carolina, did you always know you wanted to be a musical entertainer?
No, I mean, I was definitely into music. I was in the church choir, things like that, but I didn't really think of myself as being an entertainer once I even refused to sing a part because I felt like it was too embarrassing to sing in church. And it wasn't really until middle school that I started thinking more about it.
What was that part? Do you remember?
Yes, I went to Camp Canuga, about 30 minutes from here, actually.
Right,
That was my camp, and you would always sign up for activities, and
right,
one year you could sign up for a musical, and so
right.
you had to reserve your activities, most of your activities for that. So it was a big sacrifice to give up, but I had done enough performing in choirs and things like that at that point that I really wanted to do that, and it was Godspell,
Okay.
and it was a blast. It was transformative for me.
I said, but that wasn't one you refused to do, though, was
No,
it?
no, that was back way back when I was like 10 and my voice hadn't, or 12 and my voice hadn't changed yet. And I had to sing a high soprano part and I was embarrassed because my friends' voices had changed so that water under the bridge.
It's so funny you mentioned Godspell because I just finished the book about John Candy, and this
Hmm.
was one of his first roles. And I'm watching a special about him, and they talk about Godspell. And it's like a cult thing in Canada. Everybody did
Huh.
Godspell. So you were in Godspell, so that was one of your first roles.
Yes. Mm.
Okay, what role did you have?
I have no idea. I mean, it's kind of an ensemble cast, so I don't
Right, that's
know
true.
what role I had at the time.
Was that the first show you were ever in?
Yes, I think so. Yep.
And is there a record of that anywhere?
I'm sure there is not. There is no recording at the camp. That was just in my memory.
Because I have this idea, and I've shared with Eric in the past too, but I love it as a fundraiser. Everybody would recreate their very first role. So wouldn't that be great? So then you could have a record of it and you could show other
Oh,
people
that'd be so much fun.
the Godspell. So Godspell started off, that was one of the first ones you can
Mhm.
remember.
Yep.
Where did it take you from there?
Well, at that point, I was just totally immersed in it. I was so excited to do that. And the feel of bonding with a cast was such a key formative thing. My mom took me to see Cats, I think was the first musical that I saw, not too long after that, maybe early high school. And then I was in Flowers for Algernon in high school, and then started performing at Georgia Tech, at Drama Tech back in the day, and doing a few shows there, and just kept on going from there.
Were you a theater major there?
No, no, I was a software engineer, software developer.
Okay.
So
But you were
not a lot of
performing.
programs coming out of or degrees coming out of Georgia Tech.
So that's kind of cool. So you started acting then seriously when you were in college, doing a whole bunch of things. Then you continued from then on.
Well, there was a big gap when I had children. So I did some shows 2010, 2011, and then I had my got married 2013, and since then never had not been in a show for years just because there was no time with family. And so then I picked it back up a few years ago when I came to Asheville.
Because I was really excited because I hadn't known you, like you said. I've been in Asheville for a while, and then all of a sudden I started seeing your name around. But it was only the last couple of years, would you say?
Yeah, yeah, starting with Bright Star, I think it was
Okay,
2023,
the one at
maybe.
ACT,
Yes. Mm.
and what a great show that was,
God,
wasn't
it
it?
was amazing.
But that's funny, yeah, because that's probably the first time you caught my attention. I said, "Who is this guy?" I never seen him before, and ever since then, you've been doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, a fair amount. My wife said I could do one show a year, and so instead, apparently, I've been doing about two. Although some of it depended on like what happened with Helene, and John Crowley got sick for Wuthering Heights. So there's been some shows smashed together all of a sudden. But my wife has been very supportive, fortunately, of all that.
Well, it's funny you say that because a lot of spouses and significant others are like that. They give their
Yeah.
one show because people don't realize one show involves how much of your life.
Oh, probably generally 8 weeks at least. And it's not just rehearsals, it's practicing at home. And so, my days are work, help out with the kids, get to rehearsal. And so that means I'm missing bedtime. She has the burden of doing dinners every night, just about, or, 4 or 5 nights a week. So it's a big deal for the family for somebody to be gone for that much time.
What's incredible, David, I find, is that when both spouses work in theater, so
I don't
almost
know.
like, yeah, but like you said, that's almost how they do it. They rotate, so one can do
Yeah,
one thing.
which
And
makes me want to give a shout out to Dominic and Clara
well, it's so
for
funny. You're thinking about that. That's who I'm thinking of.
yeah.
And I don't know, did you see their latest show?
No, what did they do?
Now, it
I don't remember.
just recently, but what was interesting about it, their child made a debut. The child,
Really?
they brought the child on, and it was so much cute to watch it. But talking about, your kids. So you have how many kids?
I have two kids, two daughters.
Okay, and are they into theater at
They
all?
are.
Are they
Yes.
really?
Yep. I was in a show. We were in Matilda at ACT at Asheville Community Theater, and
Right.
my daughter Sarah. We were both in that, so that was great.
Oh, how?
And then my younger one just had her first speaking roles line. She had a microphone on in Alice in Wonderland at ACT at one of the summer camps.
Okay, is that cool? And boy, are those
Yeah.
camps great,
They're unbelievable. Zoe Zelonsky, shout out to her, has just done a tremendous job, and who is also my one of my co-stars in Falsettos. And if I can measure up, if I can get to 50% of what she's doing, I'll be happy. She is just such an incredible performer in
Well,
falsettos.
not only that, she's so amazing, not only as a performer, but then she does everything else. She
Everything,
does
directing,
choreography,
choreography. Yeah,
runs the programs at ACT,
yeah.
just amazing. So you're now into the last couple of years, you've been doing lots of theater, and you're doing a lot of work with Eric's troupe, right?
Yes.
And how do you find them, or how they find you?
Well, Eric was in Bright Star, so
Right.
that's how I knew him as Jimmy in Bright Star. And so he had said at the time, he's thinking about doing some productions. Am I interested in doing anything at some point? I said, absolutely. And so then he contacted me and he brought me into Nevermore, the Edgar Allan Poe musical, and Wuthering Heights. And then about a year ago, he asked if I'd be interested in falsettos if he did it.
And so, in terms of stuff you do you prefer doing musicals versus drama, or you do both?
I prefer doing, well, I won't, first of all, I'll say I love doing musicals. So my tendency is to say I prefer doing musicals. It's almost all of what I do because I love singing. I love that performance. But I have been digging deeper into characters more and more in the musicals and the work there that I'm doing. And I'm really enjoying that aspect of the acting. So I'm definitely interested at some point into doing more traditional non-musicals at some point.
I'm trying to think in the area, and I've seen just about all the stuff you've been in. Have you done any non-musicals
No,
yet?
just all musicals.
Okay, that's interesting. And let me ask the question I ask a lot of actors
Mhm.
in terms of the performing. Do you have any interest down the road to be doing directing?
Um, it's always tempting to think that you can tell people what to do. I'm a manager at work. I don't mind telling people what to do. I feel like I've got a vision for what a show should be, for what the characters should be doing. I don't know that that would translate into actually being a good director. So I could imagine it. I just am not sure that that would be something where my strengths were. So we'll see. Maybe one day.
It's funny. I ask a lot of actors that question, and I think I've asked Zoe and others as well. And a lot of them say they prefer directing, but they're not telling the truth though, because the truth is, David, they don't have to memorize the lines that way, so they can tell other people.
That may be, but I like memorizing the lines because partially because I think it keeps my brain sharp. I think that improv and line memorization and singing do a lot to keep your brain sharp, and so that's important to me.
Have you done improv as well?
I have, yeah,
What in the area?
no, No, back in Atlanta at Whole World Theater, and it was just a class. My brother was the improv star, and there he's out in LA now. He's not doing improv anymore, but he was a main performer at Whole World Theater in Atlanta, and just it's such a delight to watch him perform. But I enjoy improv. It's such a tense, challenging, exciting, and exhilarating thing to do, and when it goes well, it's awesome.
I would imagine improv is also a very useful skill for actors as well.
100%.
It's almost that you would think it would make acting in some respects easier if you
Well,
have
it makes it
improv
deeper.
skills.
It makes
Yeah.
her richer. I mean, that's why I was doing improv. Part of it was just to, like I say, keep my brain sharp because being put into that kind of cauldron, that kind of crucible of suddenly needing to perform on the spot really does something to your brain. But also part of what you do in improv is you focus on the emotions. You think about what emotions am I doing now and start with that, and start feeling that so that when something happens in improv, you're coming from a place of reality, a place of truth which helps the improv become better. And so that same sense of getting in touch with those emotions and getting in touch with something real absolutely applies 100% when you're doing acting. And that can be whether you're ensemble, or doing a straight play, doing a musical, whatever.
Well, especially too, I would imagine if you forget a line or don't know what to say, you're kind of forced to do improv a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah. I always think about when I was in Midsummer Night's Dream in college, and
Right.
one of my and the Oberon, King Oberon, was a smoker, and he was out on the landing dock smoking, having a cigarette when he was supposed to be on stage, and I was playing Puck, the fairy, and so for about 30 seconds I had to improvise, and I improvised in iambic pentameter, a poem about where my king was that day, and so that was I got a paper plate award for that at the end of the season.
Did anybody know that you were doing that aside
It
from the
was a
cast?
it was a dress rehearsal, I have to
Oh,
admit. And so they knew what was going on and they were all like, Chris, get up here.
yes, so cool. So now you're invited or you're appearing in Falsettos. And had you known that show beforehand?
Yes, I have been listening to the show since the 90s. It came out 1981 was the first one, and then 1990 was the second act. Then they were combined in 1992. I don't remember how I got into it, except that I was, loving musicals at the time, and so somehow I got and connected to that. Possibly through the gay community in Atlanta. I'm not sure through through people I knew then, but sometime in the mid 90s, probably I started listening to it and just fell in love with it. I love the music so much.
So in this production, we're going to see in Nashville, though the two acts that are into one total show. Is that it?
Yes, yeah, they were combined in 92, and I think some elements were stripped from it at the time to make one show, but it's been mostly performed as a two-act play since then.
Trying to think, in terms of preparing for this role, even, did you then go back to look at some of the YouTube clips, or did you watch it?
No, actually, Eric sent me a production of it that was on NPR, and the link didn't work, and so I never, I never followed up on it. So it's just based on my what I've kind of internalized over the years and the direction of Mary Catherine.
Well, let me ask you that in terms of your opinion. Is that a good or bad idea, not only for you, but even for your daughter, before you're going to be in something, to watch and learn about it, see it?
I tend to not prefer to do that because obviously it can affect how you choose to interpret it. Um, I really like the model of acting where you really think through the lines, you go through it line by line and think about what those lines mean to you. And so I think even if you did watch it beforehand, if you're really doing the work, then you're going to be wiping out what you saw anyway because you're coming up with your own interpretations. So
And what's interesting about the stuff you've been in or stuff I've seen you in, and very exciting that you guys are doing it, is stuff that's not typically done elsewhere.
yeah,
So what the shows you mentioned, what were they again? They were Wuthering
Nevermore,
Heights.
yeah,
Oh,
Wuthering Heights, a musical, and Nevermore, the Edgar Allan Poe musical.
and
Something
right,
Dogged Utopia excels at is coming up is finding these lesser known musicals that are really fantastic and performing them.
and that's exciting because again, I had never seen them before. Especially the two you mentioned was just like incredible.
Yeah.
Um, what's also interesting, what Eric and you guys are doing too, is you're finding shows too that people typically haven't seen elsewhere too. So like the Nevermore, I wasn't even familiar with it.
Yeah.
And the Wuthering Heights, one of my favorite shows, but to do the musical version of it, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And that was
So
particularly interesting because Eric worked with the composer quite
I
a
know,
bit,
yeah.
and he ended up we cut things, we worked things. John Crawley had to do a lot of work with the score, and really created something that was tighter and different from what the composer originally had. And I believe the creator is going to be producing our version somewhere else now.
Wow, very exciting.
Yeah.
So now for the folks who don't know falsettos, if I can put you on the spot and ask you to give me kind of the Reader's Digest version in like under 25 minutes, can you do that?
Sure, I can do it probably in 30 seconds. I play Marvin, who is a man who has discovered or has come out in his later middle age as a gay man. He's left his wife and his child, and he has taken up with his lover, and he believes that he can make that work in a way that keeps everyone happy and keep the peace. And so that is kind of how it starts, and surprise, surprise, it does not go as well as he had hoped. He has a therapist, and his therapist ends up falling in love with his ex-wife, and they get married, which was not in Marvin's plan. And this is all set in the mid '80s, in the time of the kind of gay revolution of that time, in the late '90s, late '70s, early '80s.
Well, even describing it too, I'm laughing at it. So it's a musical, but it's the hold on, let me just get rid of this if I can. The it's a musical, but it sounds like it's a comedy as well, or the comic aspects.
There's a lot of comic aspects. There it is in equal parts meaningful, hysterical, and tragic and beautiful. It is just a it is a drama, a slice of life of these people's lives, and there's some ludicrously funny aspects of it and just heartbreaking aspects of it.
So I got that you're playing the main character, Marvin, is it?
Yes.
Okay. And so talk about who else is in the show and kind of their roles.
Sure. One other thing I forgot to mention is there's a lot of elements of Judaism in this. The main characters are Jewish, and part of this revolves around my son going through his bar mitzvah. So there's a lot of Jewish themes as well. I go to the Beth Hatafila temple. My wife is Jewish, and we're raising our children Jewish. Zoe Zelansky plays Trina in the show. She's Jewish. Her mother did a presentation about Judaism and the aspects of it that really kind of helped inform what we're doing. Eric, who is the main person behind Dog Eat Utopia, he's playing Whizzer, my lover. Brimmy Moffman, Brimmy Jane Moffman, is playing Jason, my son. She was Annie in Annie at Asheville Performing Arts Academy.
Okay.
Connor Dalton, who played Daddy Warbucks with her in Annie, is playing Mendel, the psychiatrist. And then the second act, they're introduced two new characters. So that's the five in the first act. The second act introduces the lesbian neighbors, who are played by Erin Ullman and Carly Christensen.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. So I know some of these folks I'm not really familiar with. So it'll be kind of interesting to see. And
Yeah,
I think Eric does that very well, that they'll bring in people who haven't done stuff in the past for him.
yeah.
So it's a it's a two-act show. Who would you say it should see this in terms of both age-wise and interest-wise?
My children are going to see it. There's some, I would say there's some domestic violence. There's definitely, it's pretty, I will say there's some sensuality between me and Whizzer. Nothing that is offensive or anything, but it's the kind of thing where if your children don't want to see men kissing or whatever, that they might not want to come. So there's some adult themes. Um, um, and so it's beyond that, I would say it really is appropriate for all ages. There's some minor cursing, but that's about it. I don't have any problem with my kids seeing it.
What, and so your kids, you mentioned their age. So in terms of age range, you would say
I would say
18.
probably it's probably more appropriate for 15 and up. My kids are 9 and 12. This is the first lead role I have had, and which makes it incredibly special that it is this show with Eric, who's one of my good friends. But there's no way my kids were not going to see this. So
Did you kids see the other shows as well?
they got to see Bright Star. Yeah, they got to see the other ones, all of them. Yep.
Okay, and
Oh, except sorry, I was in Cabaret recently at ACT, and they did not get to see that.
okay, I'm sorry I missed that one too, but that I hear was quite a production
It
too.
was fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, so you've really hit some kind of good shows you've been
Yeah.
involved in. The in terms of the other extreme, so age-wise, so it's appropriate for me to see. It's
It is borderline appropriate for you to see. So
Okay. So anybody over 77 is
yeah.
borderline, but whatever. So the show itself then runs, how long is the show?
I'm thinking it's about 2.5 hours. We have not clocked it fully yet, but it is a little longer than we thought it was going to be, I think. So I think it's probably starts at 7:30. I think it's probably going to be getting out around 10:15 or so, but after intermission
Okay.
is my guess.
So the key is you have to sing quickly, if you
Yes, we'll have to say, so we'll have to speed up everything by 10%. It'll be fine.
well, one of the great things too about what Eric is doing and you folks are doing is that you actually, I can't believe it, you have a live orchestra. And talk a
Yes.
little bit about that in terms of performing.
It is amazing. Of course, you don't get the orchestra until very late in the game.
Right.
So it's important, first of all, the orchestra be quite good. This music is quite challenging, I would say. The composer was inspired by Sondheim quite a bit. So that is it makes the music very challenging. John Crawley is incredible at that. It's John Crawley, Kristen Dominguez, Dave. So John Crawley on piano, Kristen Dominguez on synthesizer, Dave Bruce on percussion, and Misty Rondeau, who was on woodwinds, who also performed in Cabaret. And these are four of the best musicians in Asheville. They clearly had been working on it in advance. I think Dave at least has played this before. John may have as well, but they came on Sunday night and it was essentially flawless. And it is beautiful, just beautiful.
How is it different for you as a performer, versus track versus having live?
Um, there is a richness to the sound, first of all. There's an authenticity to it, I feel like, and maybe this is the difference, between albums versus CDs or something like that, but there's an authenticity to the feel of performing with musicians. The drums are more resonant. They are more resonant. The musicians and the performers feed off each other as well. So I think it makes the whole performance more vibrant, more live. In a show like this, it gives you more flexibility for where you slow down, where you have extra measures, where you take measures away. You can work together so that the performance you're doing on the stage, the blocking, the emotions you're trying to get across, you can work with the musicians and the music director to change what happens and have them meld better than when you're just performing with tracks.
And also, as I said, we were kidding, but you can speed up a 2.5 hour show to make
Yeah.
it 2 hours, or I
Yeah.
guess you could go the other extreme, take it
Yes,
3 hours.
absolutely.
Well, also one of the great things about your troupe, if you would, is where you're performing. And talk a little bit about that because I think it's such a neat place. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't know about it yet, but where is it going to be?
It's at Asheville Performing Arts Academy. So it's South Asheville. So far, every time I talk about it, I ask people if they know Juicy Lucy's,
Oh yeah.
and they say, yeah, they do. I'm like, I was right by there. So the first time you get there, it's a little hard to figure out which parking lot to go
Right.
into. But once you get in there, it's a very intimate stage. We performed previously at the BB downtown. It's bigger than that, but it has a lot of the same intimacy. We're not mic'd, or we're not planning on using mics right now. There's 4 rows of seats, I think, something like that. I'm not sure how many people that it holds.
I think it's at 75
Okay,
max.
so about 75, something like that. But you're right there essentially with the actors and the musicians. It's a fairly wide stage, but these seats are kind of raised up above it. So you're kind of you're either on the level or slightly above where the performers are. So you're not looking up like you are in some theaters.
And one of the great things about that theater, which I just love, is parking is not only free, but it's
Yes,
easy.
easy parking.
Whereas BB was a hassle, you just get right there too. So in terms, before we get off the topic, but in terms of people getting tickets, how do they do that?
Well, it's very simple. I love the name that Eric chose for his company. It is because you can pronounce it easily, and once you look it up, it's easy how to spell it. But it's Dogged Utopia. So Dogged, Dogged, utopia.com. You go there, Falsettos is the main thing on the page, and there's a link right there to go to SimpleTix or something like that to get your tickets.
And I don't mean to put in that spot because I forgot the answer, but Eric once told me the reason for, is there a reason for that name, Dogged
Oh,
Utopia?
shoot. That really should be something I've asked him about, shouldn't it?
No,
I
I'm
don't
just
know.
curious because he once told me and I forgot it, but just a cool name for
Well,
a
now I'm going to
theater.
ask him tonight.
Okay,
It is a cool name. I just let it roll off the tongue and didn't
and
ask
like
him
you
about it.
said, you can spell it too. So talk about then after this show. So the show runs what? Unfortunately, only over two
Only two
weekends,
weekends. Yeah. I wish it
and
were at
what?
least three, but it is
Yeah,
what it is.
but Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yes. Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights at 7:30, Sunday matinees at 2:30.
Because one of the cool things, and theaters don't do it anymore, but they used to all have 3 week runs.
Yes,
ACT oftentimes does, which is great. Or there's sometimes 4 weeks,
they
right?
are.
Right,
Yep.
right, Star. But for 2 weeks, it's tough. You got to catch the show. You don't have much
Yeah.
lead time on that. So the show will run in 2 weeks. Get tickets in advance if you can. Nice thing, because I've been to the theater a couple times. Every seat's good seat.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Are there reserve seats
No, I don't think. Well, no. Yes, there are reserved seats. Yeah, when
on
you
this
buy
one?
tickets, you reserve them, but there are all the seats are great. There's no obstruction, and they're all very close. You don't really lose out on any of the angles from where the performers are on any seat. I don't think.
So after falsettos,
Mm.
do you have anything lined up yet you can share?
I don't have anything lined up. Like I said, one show a year is probably good. My wife has been very generous. Cabaret came up in the spring,
Right.
and given everything that's going on in the country right now, that was an important show for me to do. With especially with the aspects of the Nazi tie-in with Cabaret, I really wanted to do that show. And my wife said, absolutely, you have to go for that.
Nice.
And I already had falsettos lined up. So she knew it was going to be rough,
Yeah.
but she lived with it. But no, so I don't have anything else lined up right now. The only thing I will say is that Les Miserables is finally available to be produced
Oh,
again.
is it really? Wow.
Yes, I have been wanting to do that show and play Jean Valjean for since it came out. So since I was 18 years old,
Yeah.
and I have never ever had an opportunity. I found out afterwards that it was available for a year and a half in like 2012, something like that, and I had no idea, missed it completely. So I realized that the odds of me actually getting it when every tenor in, a 500-mile radius is going to be going for it when it's available, but every time it comes up, I'm going to be trying for that because that is my number one dream role of all time.
Is it going to be in the Expo area or we don't
I
know
don't
yet?
know. I haven't heard anything. It will be everywhere. I mean, there's people are applying for it. I think they've given out something like 500 licenses already
Oh,
for
really?
people to use it around the country, to perform it around the country. So I'm sure it will be in the Asheville area, but I haven't heard anything.
And so that was going to be the last question I was going to ask you
Okay.
in terms of after that show, Les Miserables, do you have any other dream role you've always wanted to do?
So many. And I am just, the thing is, I'm aging out of all of them. So one by one, like in Cabaret, one of my dream roles was the MC role.
Yeah.
And I tried out for that and I got Herr Schultz, the old Jewish man. So, and it was great. I loved it. It was a fantastic show. I was so glad, but I think that was probably my last chance to possibly get the MC role. ACT is doing Little Shop of Horrors. Seymour is another of my dream roles. And unless someone is doing it aged up where you have a 60-year-old Seymour, then I'm not going to be getting to play Seymour. They did Rent, and I would have loved to have played Mark Cohen. Was just coming off of Nevermore, and the guy that got it is just so good. God, I should remember his name, but I saw Rent and it was so fantastic. I wouldn't have got it if I tried out, but that was another dream role. I was like, this is the last chance. I'm too old to get Mark, but I'm going to try it anyway. And I just wasn't able to even audition because it was too close to everything else. But I think that was my last chance for Rent. So there will probably be other dream roles that come up, but Jean Valjean may be the last one that's really where I can play it at the age I am.
And by the way, back to falsettos, we forgot to mention a couple other key people. So your director is who?
It's Mary Catherine O'Donnell.
Okay.
Yes.
And so aside from that, you also have Kroll is the music director.
Yep. We have
We have to
Barbie
give it,
Angel is doing costumes.
I was
The
going to say we have to give
inimitable
it,
Asheville icon, Barbie Angel.
well, we had to give it, I sort of saying we had to give a shout out to Bobby. So
Yeah.
that's really cool. And she's
She is
still,
also stepping in to do props as well because there's a lot of prop work that needed to be done. And in a small production company like Eric's, it's like going to a startup company. Everybody like wears multiple hats. So she's been doing a lot of prop work as well as the
uh,
costuming.
very exciting. I know she's very excited about it.
Mhm.
So anyway, I want to thank you for being my guest on this edition, especially on short notice.
I also want to mention Sean Bruce and Shauna Greenlee, who are stage manager and assistant stage manager. Didn't
Okay.
want to leave them out.
Yeah. Oh, that's neat. Sean is David's son.
Yes, Sean is David's son. I didn't realize that until partway through when I kept seeing them get in the same car when they were leaving. I was like, well, that's interesting. And then at some point he said something about, doing going home or family or whatever. I was like, wait a second, is that his dad?
Okay.
I
Very
never knew
cool.
anything.
Good guy, David Bruce. Anyway, thanks for being my guest on this
Sure
edition
thing.
of the Blainsville podcast. Hopefully, it will be the first of many future appearances. Also, I thank my producer, Kim Jones, and I look forward to seeing the show this coming week, and we're certainly
Great.
other people should
Oh,
see it.
and I don't think we mentioned it, but it is in 2 days. August 27th, Thursday is when it starts.
Okay, so if you want to get over, get tickets real soon. Anyway, my
Yes.
friend, thanks very much for joining us, and like I said, we'll bump into each other real soon, I'm sure. Thank
Yes.
you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Blaine.